questions, just post them on the Q&A chat. And in case you need any help with anything, I am here, David K, and I have Aubrey supporting myself as well. So any questions, but general questions, you can post them on the chat for everybody to see. I'm pretty much sure here, most of you have attended other user group sessions. So we welcome you to the Dallas user group session. I hope it will be a different experience, and we hope it will be relevant. We hope therefore I'm looking forward to learn a lot. And I should say that awesome, amazing. Am I frozen? Am I still frozen, guys? It's okay now. Okay. All right. Let's all ready for any technical hitches. I know we are all IT guys here, so yeah. Thank you. I appreciate the check-in on the chat. Progressive web apps. So this is, thank you, Daniel. This is relevant for me, and I hope it's relevant for all of you, and even for your future projects. And caching. Can you imagine if you apply what you learn in the best way to build PWAs, then apply caching principles? I mean, isn't that like a double sword? So yeah, take some notes today. I think you will learn amazing things today that you can take back to your workplaces and to your project. All right, Antonio, floor is yours when you're ready. I hear some audio. Is that somebody trying to join? Awesome. Antonio is here and he's ready to school us. I have my pen and paper. So Antonio, you're on mute. We want to hear, say hello so I can stop blubbering.
Hi, David. Hello. Hello,
Okay.
everyone.
Your audio made me, it sounds like mine was probably sounding like.
Is it okay, the audio?
Not yet. Not yet. Take your time. Just try and change the sound settings. We are all IT folks here. We understand. At least we can see you now, so that's good. That's some progress. Awesome.
Well, where did you change the audio settings for this?
At the bottom, there should be a menu to select the microphones. You may be using just another microphone.
Is it okay? It's better?
No.
Is it no? I'm changing
that is okay? Go ahead, Antonio. You're on mute, Mr. Antonio. Sorry, guys. What's going on? Sorry.
And so, can you hear me? Yes? Can you hear me now, David? Yes, it's okay. But I can hear you. But okay, you are muted, David. Okay.
Oh, go ahead. Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Okay. So I can't hear you, David, but I assume that you are hearing me. It is okay, right? And okay. So let's start. Let me share my screen. Okay. So I think everyone is you are seeing my screen. Okay. So hello everyone. Let's start this session from OutSystems Dallas user group. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Antonio Barroso. I'm an OutSystems architect at TrueWind. I have been working with OutSystems technology for about 8 years. Before that, I was a C# .NET developer. And I have been working at TrueWind for about 3 years. So these are my contacts, my email address, my LinkedIn. So feel free if you want to contact me. Okay, so the goal of this session is, like David said, is about PWA. More in detail, offline application for Windows. Yes, let's use PWA. It is possible. So the session has 3 topics. First one, why a PWA? Why did we choose a PWA? We developed a project, and in that project we have some requirements. I'm going to show you what was the requirements that led us to choose PWA, and also some challenges that we faced, and how we addressed those challenges with the PWA. The second topic is how to prepare a native application to support PWA. If you currently have a mobile native application, it is possible to distribute it as a PWA. You just need to make some changes, and it will be ready for PWA. I'm going to show what changes are that you have to make. And the third topic here is how to integrate multiple service workers. Service workers are important, are components, are browser components, and sometimes there are certain functionalities that you need to integrate, and you need to get different service workers, like push notifications. But an application, PWA, can just run one single service worker at a time. So I'm going to show you how to integrate multiple service workers in one single service worker to support the PWA. So let's start. Why PWA? First, to understand that, I need to talk about the project and the requirements, the project requirements. So the project basically was a web application to support surveyor activities, providing e-forms and investment calculators. And these are the main requirements that led us to choose a PWA. First, the first the application should run in a portable device and also in a desktop. And why? Because usually the surveyors, they need to visit real estate properties to do some valuations, and they use a mobile device like a tablet. They fill in the form, they can take pictures, they do all of that work, and it is important to have a good portable device for that. But in the end, they want to get home or to get to the office and finish the valuation report in their own desktop. So this was an important requirement. Second one, very important also, the application should support Windows 10 operating system. And why? Because they use the Windows Surface tablet. And the Windows Surface tablet runs, obviously, the Windows 10 operating system. So this is also a major requirement that led us to the PWA. The third one is the offline capability with background synchronization. So sometimes the surveyors are doing some visits, site visits, in places where there are no internet connection. So they really need to have to continue to work without internet connection. But then in the end, they want to get back and synchronize the data in a background process. Other important requirement here is the integrated authentication. They use, it's a financial institution, so they use a core system, IBM AS400 for the authentication. Another requirement, important requirement, is so the application should allow surveyors to capture pictures or take pictures using the device camera. And last, the application should allow the users to draw like the floor plans using a pen in the screen on the surface of the tablet. So, and why PWA is the solution? So let's see these first three requirements. First, it should work on a portable device, a mobile device, and a desktop. Plus, it should work also with Windows 10 operating system. Not only Windows, you can still run using in iOS or Android, but still it needs to run in Windows. And then the offline capability. The application should have offline capability. So PWA is the only solution, right? Why not mobile? Because if you build a mobile application, a native application, you cannot compile, let's say this way, compile the code to run on a Windows operating system. And why not reactive or traditional web? Because that way you wouldn't have all the offline capability with background synchronization that you have on a mobile device. So that's why we choose PWA. Okay, let's talk about PWA, or progressive web applications. Okay, basically it's a type of application that is built using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It runs in the common browsers, standard compliant browsers, Microsoft Edge, Chrome, etc. And it runs both in desktop and mobile devices. There are some advantages of using progressive web applications. So first, they behave like mobile applications. They have the same look and feel and the same behavior. Second, the high performance. The performance is similar or even better than native apps. When you install a native application on your browser, the application stores some extra information that helps performance in the runtime. So that's why some say that sometimes it is even better, better performance than native apps. It's multi-platform. Actually, that's why it is called progressive, because it works the same way in web and mobile. Another important advantage is the easy installation. So it works like a mobile app. It has the same look and feel and the same behavior, but it is not an app. So you don't need to submit to the app stores. And this advantage brings another advantage. So you don't have to support the cost to submit to the stores. It is also discoverable. So Google and other search engines can index the content of your progressive web application. It has easy distribution. So you just need to share a QR code, and everyone that scans the QR code can install your application. Another advantage, your application is always updated. If you change something in your code, if you change something in your application, you don't need to wait to submit the changes to the App Store and wait for the App Store approval. It is automatically updated on the user's devices. And last, it has service worker support. So it supports like push messages, background data sync, and advanced cache. Just for curiosity, who is using progressive web applications in the market? Well, there's a lot of companies, of course, that are using progressive web applications for the reasons that we have seen. These are just some of them. I'm pretty sure that everybody knows this one. So if you go to the website and look for the PWA versions, you can find it, you can install it, and you will see that looks really like the native app version of their applications. Okay, let's continue here. Like I said, we faced some challenges, and we were not sure that we could address those challenges using progressive web applications. One of the first challenge was the data synchronization. So, like I said in the beginning, the surveyors that use this application, well, they sometimes they work offline, right? They are working offline, taking pictures. They store a lot of data on the local storage. On sometimes they work online and then on their desktop, and then they want to get all the information to the local storage to work offline. So there are some patterns that we want to implement to sync the data from server to the local storage and back to the server again. When we work in OutSystems, we work with mobile applications, native applications. We have some accelerators that you may know, like there are some client actions that help us to do that work in the background, so in a asynchronous way. So we wanted to use the same patterns in the progressive web application. And the good news is, yes, it is possible to do that. We can use the same accelerators and trigger the offline data sync in the progressive web applications. There are just you need to pay attention to the quota, the storage quota. So the local storage, first, the PWA is browser based, right? So the local storage actually is stored, the data is stored on a browser database called IndexedDB. Actually, you can look at inspect the data if you use the developer tools on the browser. So you need to pay attention because there are some limitations. Each browser has its own limitation. This is the limitation you can see here for each browser. But if you be careful, it's quite enough. In our case, just quite enough for our needs. Okay, the other challenge we faced was about how to integrate external libraries in a progressive web application. Would it be possible? We had a requirement, the freehand drawing requirement. So the surveyors like to draw floor plans using the pen. The Microsoft Surface tablet has a pen. They like to draw that. So we need to integrate an external library. In this case, was this Pixie. It's an external library, but there is not a component for this in OutSystems Forge. So what we did was to create a wrapper React component in OutSystems and integrate the JavaScript library, and it works. So the good news are, okay, we can use reactive components in our progressive web application. We just need to create wrappers or use the components available from the Forge. Another challenge, in this case a third challenge, okay, is about the camera plugin. So progressive web application is not a mobile application, is not native. So it does not support the Cordova. Cordova is that framework, let's call it, that compile HTML code into native code. So because we are just using HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, we cannot use this camera plugin. That's the camera that allows users to use the camera. So what is the solution? Okay, is to use a camera reactive component. Camera reactive component is not a Cordova-based component. It's a HTML5 component, but it does the same thing. It allows the users to use the device camera and take pictures. So that's a good news. You can still use the device camera on progressive web applications. Okay, now let's see how can we prepare a native app to support progressive web applications. First, let's say that there is no progressive web application template in OutSystems. When you open Service Studio, if you want to build a progressive web application, you need to choose the phone app template. Okay, it's like you were developing a native mobile application. But then when you get to the mobile application configuration screen, which is this screen, there is a section to configure the distribution. So here is where you configure the native platforms, like Android app and the iOS app, but also when you can select to distribute as PWA. And it is just as simple as to turn on this toggle button and you immediately get the QR code that you can share with the users, and they then can install the application. So it is important to note that we can have the same code, and with the same code, we can build a native app and send to the store, and we can distribute it also as a progressive web application. Well, but there is some tricks that we need to do here. First, like we said before, progressive web applications don't support, does not support Cordova plugins. So imagine, for instance, that you have a flow to take a picture, right? So if you want your application to be ready to PWA, you need to, the first thing, you need to get the operating system and check if it is running on a Windows, right? And then if it is running on Windows, you can use the reactive component, right? If not, we can assume that the user is running iOS or Android, and you can use the component, the Cordova component, which is the camera plugin, to take the picture. So there are, you can do it several ways. You can get operating system, you can check if it is running iOS or Android, or there is an action within the OutSystems UI space. Is this one is running as PWA? You can also check if it is running as a personal progressive web application. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to integrate multiple service workers. Okay, first, what is a service worker? Well, service worker is a component, a browser component. It's like a proxy that is between the front end and the back end of your web application. It allows developers to hook certain functionalities. It's executed on a separate thread. This is important. So it does not impact your UI, your screens. It does not write anything on the screens. And it runs in the background in a synchronous way. So, and why it is important? Well, because there are some functionalities that need background functionality that service worker provides, like the background data synchronization or the push notifications. In our project, we needed to integrate with the push notification service provider, OneSignal, but there are others. We integrated with OneSignal. So, and we've faced a challenge. OutSystems platform has its own service worker, right? Has its own service worker when you build an application. But to have push notifications on our application, we need to integrate the service worker from our provider, which is OneSignal. So we have two service workers, but actually one application can just run one single service worker. So it's required to merge the service workers, both service workers or more service workers, in just one service worker, and then re-register that service worker in that in our application. So how can we do that? First thing to do is to create a JavaScript file and then you can import both scripts. In this case, the first line imports the script from OneSignal. It is publicly available. It's in the CDN. And the second line imports the OutSystems platform service worker. Okay. So now that we have one single service worker, we need to register that service worker on our application. And then we just need to run this code. Actually, the best way to do it is include it in a block, web block, and then we include that block in all screens or pages or in the template maybe. So this way we can be sure that the service worker is always registered and it will not be overwritten by the service worker provided by the OutSystems platform. And this way you can have push notifications from OneSignal and at the same time background data synchronization from the OutSystems platform accelerators. Okay, if you want to know more about PWA, you can read this article at TrueWind. I will share this on the chat, the link on the chat. And that's it. Thank you for your time. Once again, my contacts, if you want to contact me. And that's it. David, it's your turn.
Can you hear me okay? Thank you, Antonio. Thank you for that informative session. I hope my audio is okay.
I'm sorry, David, I can't hear you. I don't know why.
All right. How's that? Can you hear me? No? Let's see. Yes. All right. Perfect. Thank you, Antonio, for that informative session. I truly learned a lot. I picked a lot of lessons there. Thank you. I'm sure everybody here, all attendants that signed in at the start of your session are still there. So that says a lot about the quality of your content. So thank you. Thank you very much. Like I promised you guys, we have people who know what they're talking about. I mean, that sounded like the coolest boss who knows about OutSystems to present something as cool as PWA. I do have a question for you, Antonio, before I ask everybody else if they have any other question. Antonio, the steps that you talked about right now, like the example where you're now rolling it out, would you say so? I'm looking at this in the stage of this after discovery and after this is when the experts are coming into the enterprise to install things. So I'm guessing this is where you will lay out these plans, right? And you're teaching us stuff that the experts would do. Is that correct?
Well, if I understood your questions, yes, I think PWA is a good alternative, in the market. That's why I show you what some companies, major companies, are doing. So there are some advantages, beginning from the costs. You don't have costs to with the stores. You can distribute for sometimes for a single group of users. In the case of this project, the users, the surveyors, were 30, 40. Why do you want to build a native app and submit to the store if it is to be used by an internal group of users, right? So there are some advantages, and this will be the future. It's a very good alternative to native applications.
Thank you. So for the camera plugin, as one of the challenges that you talked about, if I understood you correct, the Microsoft the ISS layer integration with OutSystems or with an PWA it has a challenge, and you have to use the component to override that. Is that correct?
Well, the issue about the camera plugin is the issue about other kind of components that you cannot use on a PWA. There are, because PWA mobile components rely on Cordova, right? Cordova is the framework that allows you to compile HTML, CSS, and JavaScript into native code. So those components, the mobile components that you can find on the Forge, I would say 90% of them are based on the Cordova plugin, right? So PWA does not support Cordova because it relies on the browser. It's not compiled code, native code, it's a browser. So in this case, the camera, you have a good alternative. You have a good alternative because you can use HTML5 camera. So in this case, you can replace it by a React component. And of course, if you want to, in your application, want to your application to be ready for PWA, but at the same time, the same code is to be compiled as a native, you always need to check what is the operating system the user is using, and then you can in the flow you can branch for the side for if it is not it's not Cordova based, you can use reactive components. But if you need, of course, if you need other kind of features of your device, sensors, NFC, and other kind of other stuff, uh, there are things that you cannot access using HTML. So you cannot you cannot use. So there are some use cases that you still need to use native applications.
Perfect. I will take two questions from chat. I know he's about to leave, but he asked a question. Antonio, are there components already in the Forge that encapsulate the PWA plus Cordova solution?
That's a good question. When we started to develop this application, we faced the camera plugin issue. Um, and then we needed to do that trick that I showed to you. But then after that, there was a new release on the camera plugin component, and in the code we know that inside the component it is preventing if it is not a Cordova based, it will use the React HTML camera. So I'm not sure still if it works okay using Windows, because Windows is like a third party, in this case. But it is okay for you to use the camera plugin in the PWA without compiling as a native application. But probably there are more components that are being updated for this new feature, for the PWA.
Awesome. Amazing. Wonderful information. Thank you, Antonio, for breaking that down and building it up with the technicals and the details. Amazing session. I truly enjoyed it. Thank you, Pedro, for joining and asking and just being there. I appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you in the next OSUG. Thank you for joining. Ladies and gents, thank you for staying. I mean, I'm just at awe that at least more than 90% of people who joined are still here. That means that we're doing our jobs. It's Dallas OutSystems User Group session once again. As we prepare for the second half, let's say step 2 of 3 steps, which will be a session led by OutSystems MVP. Anthony, did you have something? Did I forget something? No. Okay. We have a MVP getting ready to host the next amazing, awesome session. I just love how these two sessions are. They are very relevant. We should be coming up with topics, pairing them up like that because they create that power. I'm truly, truly looking forward to this evening because I will be looking back at this day and thinking or coming up with ways I could just apply PWA and cash. I mean, if that's not the best way to learn, I don't know what is. We have a short intermission, so break, grab a water, coffee, tea, whatever you want. Thank you, Sam, for thanking Antonio. Thank you. Our second session will start in about what? In about 5 minutes. That way, we want to just keep going, want to keep rolling, guys. Thank you for staying with us as we get ready for the next session, guys. If you want to share your OutSystems profile, if you want to share your a link that's not too businessy, something that developers here can enjoy. If you want to connect with anybody here, post your OutSystems profile link. Who knows? We might meet again in other OutSystems user group sessions, and the annual OutSystems developer conference. All amazing, amazing opportunities for developers to learn. Okay, I will mute myself here for 2 minutes and then unmute myself and pick it back up as we prepare for the second session. Thank you for staying, guys. And as always, if you have any questions, even for the upcoming session, which is caching, it's all about cache, just post it there, and there's no bad reason to start posting any questions you may have. Thank you. Antonio, are you able to stop sharing your screen so João can just move a little bit closer to the left? Hello, João. How are you today?
I'm fine, David, and you?
Awesome, awesome. Your audio is good. We'll go with your video. Perfect. Thank you.
Nice.
I know everybody's looking forward to learn something new today from a fellow MVP. Look at me, an MVP about caching. So we're excited. I know I'm excited myself. In fact, I am 3 blank papers excited and a pen excited. So guys, this is important stuff. Caching, relevant stuff. I bet they were talking about caching the moment they invented, the computers started increasing their computing power. I mean, it was a human nature problem if you look at it that way. So I look forward to learn from the best about this topic. Awesome.
Thanks for your kind words. I mean, caching has been used for a while now, and it's kind of a transversal concept to the whole Internet of Things. So I'll just present an angle of it.
Perfect. And that's an angle we are all looking forward to hearing today. We have about what, 5 minutes left? Let's see here. Yes, 5 minutes left. Ladies and gents, thanks for staying at the end. We have a gaming session where just 10 to 15 minutes to just wrap everything up we've learned today with a nice little screen share game on your phone. So just get your phone ready. You just need your phone and your browser. We'll have a Kahoot session. Some of the nice questions will come from the presentation. Nothing too hard. We're giving away swag kits. We like nice looking swag kits, saying OutSystems. Oh yeah, let's get ready for that. And Antonio, if you're there, please see if you can click any button that can stop sharing your screen, please. It's 11:55 in Dallas. The session that João is about to start will start in about 5 minutes, and that will go for 25 minutes with 5 minutes at the end. Thank you, Antonio. And 5 minutes at the end for Q&A. So please prepare your questions about caching. And then immediately after that, I will slide into the fun and round, which is at 12:30. It's about 35 minutes from now. And then I will start concluding 40 minutes from now. Thank you.
Shall I share my screen?
Yes, you can start sharing your screen. You have about 4 minutes of just, yeah, take it away. The floor is yours.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
What's left before we start? And whenever you're ready, João, just take it away.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, David. Well, hello everyone. Thank you all for joining this session. I hope you will enjoy it. Today we're going to discuss the importance of caching and how to cache in its benefits. And from the different types of caching, I'm going to focus mostly on server-side caching. Even though I'm going to explain how to apply caching principles using the OutSystems platform, the concepts explained in this presentation can apply to any website, independent of the technology with which they are built. Okay. I'll start with a small presentation of myself. My name is João Marques. I was born and raised in São Miguel, Azores, an island archipelago in the middle of the Atlantic. I started my career back in 2013 in Lisbon and have been working with OutSystems ever since. Platform 7 back then. I worked the last 5 years in the Netherlands and have been named OutSystems MVP earlier on this year. And currently I'm working as an independent OutSystems tech lead consultant. I'm will also leave here my contacts. So if you have any questions, remarks, or suggestions, feel free to reach me out. Any feedback is welcome. Okay. This is our agenda for today. We are going to start by discussing the basics of caching. What is it? Why is it important? And when should we use it? Then we'll move on to the different ways on which we can apply it using the OutSystems platform. And later on, we are going to discuss how does server-side caching works. We'll briefly cover the types of cache, discuss some common scenarios where those types apply, and even have a small demo on one of these cases. And finally, we are going to present a few tips and discuss some pitfalls when using caching just before we conclude. Okay, let's start by what is caching. Caching is the process of storing data in a temporary storage, which is called cache, so aka cache. Leave here 2 examples. Fetching the data from the temporary storage rather than the original storage, whether it's a server, a database, an external party, etc., is faster. So that's it. That's simply what cache is. If we take a look at this example on the first image, we see that the ideal scenario is when we open a website and we get data from this temporary storage. If this temporary storage, many times it's the browser, so we don't need to get this information from the server, so you are not dependent on network to get the data and so on. Otherwise, we need to get the data from the database, which takes longer to read, and then we save it on the cache. Okay, so that's the basic of it. We also can take a look at a few typical examples. On the second image, for instance, we have browser caching. In this example, it depicts the scenario where when we access a web page, there comes a lot of files with it. There come JavaScript files, there come CSS files, the page, and so on. And so a few of these files, like CSS files and JavaScript, those rarely change. And by the principle that we are very likely to navigate on this website or to revisit that web page, these files are cached when there is the first access. Or if you have ever changed the fav icon, which is that symbol of your application on the tab, using an OutSystems reactive application, you also know that you need to clear the cache. So once again, it's one of those things that it's downloaded when you first access the site and rarely change, and therefore is cached. So it follows here the same principle. This is even more important or more noticeable when we're talking about a mobile phone, because the mobile phone, the network is not as good as on the computer, and therefore it takes longer to go to the server and it's more dependent on the quality of your network. So that's why accessing a website the second time is much faster than the first. And that's also why your browser storage grows considerably after a while. It's actually very common on the mobile applications that you have one of those apps that always suggests you clearing out space on your phone, and caching always ranks it up. Okay, so why is it important? Cache. Well, it reduces execution time. Of course, we are thinking about improving performance. It saves network the burden of traffic. So if you think a mobile phone, it will save you a lot of network data that would be unnecessary. It also reduces the number of hits on the backend. So if we think about the first example, that database that will serve a lot of requests will be protected, and therefore it will be more free to serve more requests. Therefore, will increase performance and will promote the scalability. The scalability here is related to the fact that if that database is protected from these calls, then it would be free to attend more calls. So if you have parts of your website which are cached, therefore it means that when the user enters that web page, it won't hit that database. So it will be free to attend even more requests. That's the principle behind it. So now that we know what cache is and how it can be advantageous, why don't we use it always and everywhere? How should we pinpoint situations how to use it? Does it have any downsides if we don't use it well? Well, like many other techniques, they should be applied on specific contexts. Otherwise, there can be some serious drawbacks and the cure can be worse than the disease. So knowing that caching is a copy of the data, not the master source of data, we should think about caching when, well, data is near static. That one is pretty obvious. If data is constantly changing, then it will be constantly updated and I need to be refreshing my local copy. If data is often used, because if information is not really used, we are not really optimizing anything, are we? And finally, if the data is, if it's a process heavy to load, because if it's heavy to load, then we are really processing, we are protecting this backend from something, the backend from something. Otherwise, I mean, if it's almost doing nothing, we're also not gaining that much by protecting it. So, and what happens when we misuse cache? Well, the first one we already discussed a little bit. We can find ourselves with outdated information. This, of course, happens when the data is not that static and it changes often. And the cache is not refreshed, and therefore we end up getting an outdated version of data. And last but not least, cache uses server resources, namely server memory, which is not unlimited. So eventually we can cause the servers to run out of memory. Okay. Now let's take a look at how to apply it in OutSystems. Okay. Given that traditional web applications are steadily giving place to reactive and mobile applications, we will focus on those two types of applications. Okay. And as such, we can and should take advantage of client-side caching, avoiding unnecessary calls to the server, and to allow the app to work offline. So when we use client-side, we can make the app work offline. And in OutSystems, we can cache data on client-side using client variables and local storage. At this moment, local storage is only available on mobile applications, not on reactive web app. Client variables are stored in the browser, so the ones that we see on the left under the folder client variable are stored in the browser and are usually used to cache configurations or app context data. Please do not store sensitive data on them, since they can easily be accessed and tampered with. As for the local storage, as we can see on the right side image, it allows us to save tables of data in the device. It usually involves synchronization mechanisms between the server and the device. So in this example, we would need to get the stored data from the server once in a while and store it on the device. And this process may be more or less complex depending on the amount of data, depending on the complexity of the process, and on the business requirements. Still a bit more on how to apply it in OutSystems. Regarding caching server side, there are two elements that can be cached: server action and queries. As you can see here on the properties on both element properties. Okay. The cache duration is set on minutes and can only be set in design time. This means that there's no way that you can change its runtime without publishing your application using Lifetime or Service Center. No. If you realize that your cache, instead of being 2, has to be 30, you need to go to the code and update it and publish it. In more complex scenarios, customized multi-layer caching is many times necessary to ensure scalability and the information served to the users is ready to be served. Okay. These types of approaches are strongly coupled with business needs, and more information can be found online on the OutSystems documentation. Perhaps a topic for another session, but there already have been a few on this topic as well. Okay, one aspect that I would like to stress is, oops, wait a minute. Elements are cached per action, per query, and per input parameter values. This means that this is important not only to understand how it works, but to take into account and don't cache, for instance, for years, a get user details by user ID action when you have millions of users. Because this means that you would save a result potentially for every user in your application. So eventually you would be saving up 1 million of slots having the value of your query in the server. And remember, the resources are not unlimited. Okay? It's important to know that if the input parameter values change, this means that a new value will be cached. So when I access the page of the profile of João and I cache it, if I go again and search for Paul, I will get a different result because it would have a miss because he would not find it on the caching because João is a different slot. So it would try to go for Paul. It has a miss. It goes then to the database, picks up the value, and stores it in a cache. Okay. Another important aspect to take into account is that cache is stored at the server level. Take a look at the example in the image where we have a farm environment with 3 servers and 1 load balancer. So imagine that this is round robin. So we have a part of our website, of our web page, which is cached. So when I enter the page, for the first time, of course, the caches are empty, and the load balancer sends me to server 1, that request to server 1. It will try to see if the result is on the cache, and it misses, so it goes, fetches to the database, saves it on the cache. The second request, since it is a round robin, would likely go for server 2, and the cache would be empty because it will look on its own cache. And the same thing for server 3. Only after that, when it starts to repeat servers, then the cache will get a hit, and we are actually improving something. Okay, but when is cache cleared? Can we clear it on demand when it needs to be refreshed? Well, there are a few situations which cause a cache miss and the data to be fetched from the original storage and stored new values of the cache. So when does this happen that I go and fetch a new value? Well, the first one is pretty obvious. If it's empty, so it's the first time I get this data, or if the cache has expired, meaning that I accessed the first time, the value is cached for 2 minutes. So when I go there on 3 minutes, the cache, of course, it was cleared, and it will need again to get the information to this original storage. The second one is different input parameters. So as we discussed on the previous slide. Third one refers to when we publish the module of the cached element. That's why when we open the app after publishing, it takes a bit longer than afterwards. It's because when we publish, cache is invalidated, and then again you're fetching all those CSS files and those JavaScript files that I mentioned on the beginning of this presentation. Another situation is when the value of a site property changes. This will cause the clearing of the cache, and that's why you should avoid changing site property values on runtime. So if you put on the code something and you're constantly changing the site property value, then cache will be cleared and cleared and cleared. And suddenly, when the user accessing the application is not taking advantage of caching. But this is particularly important if you're talking about the front-end application, because JavaScript and CSS, those ones are all automatically cached by the OutSystems platform. And finally, when we use one of the 2 invalidate cache actions, which are on the system extension. So if we use the space invalidate cache and tenant invalidate cache, the module and the tenant, all the whole module and the whole tenant will have their cache invalidated respectively. Okay. For the sake of simplicity, we can split the cache server-side caching in 2 types. So long cache, the long one, which applies for situations that their data rarely changes. So this long it should be like long duration cache. So if we want to have a value stored in the cache for long, it's better that the data does not change all the time. Otherwise, we're constantly refreshing the data. So, and in these cases, we obviously want to keep it for a long period of time. In the rare event that data changes, cache can be invalidated programmatically with the invalidate actions that we just saw on the previous slide. For some examples, well, site properties work exactly like this. They are not supposed to be constantly changing, so they represent a cached value that you can use throughout the application and improve the performance because you're not really querying the database. Another example is app configurations. So an example is if you think about the CRM, where we have a list of clients and we manage the contacts, we manage eventually invoices and all the information about the clients. We can think that, hey, I'm going to have a drop down of the clients everywhere throughout the application. But unfortunately, I don't have clients every minute of every day. So it can be a situation where I want to have that list there, avoiding going to the database and getting the list of clients all the time. I can save it for a long time. And once in a month, once I have a new client and I create or update the client, the cache would be invalidated. As for the short cache, it is used to prevent high traffic peaks, so this means those situations where that screen, where that information is constantly being requested. So, and this one, we should involve the business to define the cache refresh rate. What does this mean? This means that to define how long is acceptable for that information to be outdated. I'll give you an example to make it simpler to explain. So when we go to OutSystems Forge, so which is basically the place where you can find all those components to enrich our application, to extend our application, you will see these two blocks that we see there on the image. So the newest apps and the supported and trusted apps. For the newest apps, we should think, is that really necessary to be up to date by the second? Isn't it acceptable that information is updated for, let's say, 5 minutes? If that's the case, we can cache it. So it means it can take up to 5 minutes for me to see the newest information. But is it really important that I see, hey, immediately somebody published an app when I enter that? So just putting a cache there for 5 minutes, if OutSystems Forge takes, for instance, 10 requests per second, we're talking about 600 for the minute. If we cache it for 5 minutes, we're talking about 3,000 requests that we are caching. Well, except the first one, because there's a cache miss and we need to go to the database, but we're saving 2,999 calls to the database. And what do we lose? Yeah, we see the information there updated for 4 minutes. This one is a perfect example for the high traffic peak. Another example is this COVID graph, noticing the deaths and the cases of COVID. You probably have seen this, especially last year when COVID really hit by the University of John Berkeley. And yeah, once again, imagine this website was probably receiving a ton of requests to get this data to show there by people that wanted, hey, whoa, COVID is really hitting strong and so on. And imagine, what is the problem of you seeing this information 1 minute delayed? It's not that relevant if you see the data outdated for 1 minute. And besides, if you think about those numbers, this is probably a heavy query for your database to calculate. So if you don't apply cache on it, if you have a lot of people going there, your database will work a lot because it's processing a heavy loading query a lot of times to support all those users. If you cache it, it just processes 1 time per minute and it will be able to serve everybody. Okay, so this is another perfect example of this short cache. Okay. Another example that I also didn't mention here for the long cache is an Excel when we use the lookup tables, and I'm going to show you here on a quick demo. So imagine the scenario that I have an application where I will load the information of a bunch of employees. Okay, so this data model, very simple one. I have the table employee, and the employee, besides the first and last name, it also has an academic degree, a company role, a country, and department. Okay, these 5 tables. They could be static, but I want to be in control because tomorrow I may have a new company, or I may want to have people from a new country, and I want to have it on the database. So very simple. Have an employee with these 5. And I'm going to show you here the application. Okay, so the application very quickly. We have here the academic degrees. We have here companies, company roles, so CEO, software engineer, and so on. We have countries and we have departments. And then I want to import employees. So long, I'm going to load the employees, and I'm going to do an upload of them without using cache. Okay. So basically, in terms of code, I have coded a very simple Excel file, a very simple process where I'm going to fetch the file, I'm going to delete all my employees, I'm going to get the Excel, and I'm going to translate the IDs. So as any relational database, we save the IDs, but since the Excel should be a readable process for the user will import like Portugal or like Netherlands or USA rather than number 1, 2, or 3. So we need to kind of translate the label to the IDs so we can assign to the records and create it on the database. Very, very simple process. The only difference, so I copied the process for one with cache, and the only difference is this. I'm caching this result for 5 minutes. Just that. So when I'm reading every Excel file, for the second time I'm reading Netherlands, I don't need to translate this into the ID number 2 or to ID number 3. So it would save it on cache and it would reuse it, and I would save going to the database this many times. Well, the Excel file I'm going to show you here very quickly. It's a 10,000 employee. Yeah, there I have it. Simple thing. And I'm going to use it to import in the application. So at this moment, I should have a lot of employees. Yeah, I have 10,000. And here on the import, I save the record. So we can see that it took 1 minute, 55 seconds to do the whole process. So now I'm going to repeat the exact same process, but using the cached version. Okay. So to be the exact same process, but whenever I'm looking for the United States and seeing which ID it is, it's going to do the first time and then it's going to save it for 5 minutes because I'm also expecting the Excel to be just 5 minutes. Okay. Okay, so we can see the number is growing. So he cleared everything and is importing everything again. Okay. So if I go to the import, it took 25 seconds rather than 1 minute and 55 seconds. We're talking a difference of almost 4 times more, almost 5 times more the duration. A simple thing. They just cached it for 5 seconds, for 5 minutes. So that's the impact that cache can have when it's well used. Of course, we might run into the situation that, hey, this Excel does not need, this process does not need to be super fast. But there are certain situations that you're not importing 10,000, you're importing millions of rows, and the process is way more complex. So this is the dramatic difference that cache can make. So moving back to the application. Oops, wrong button. Let me go back again to where we were before jumping into the demo. Now let's head to demos and to tips and pitfalls. So after working with cache for a while, one starts to gather a few tips and starts noticing common pitfalls. Let's view a couple of pointers on how to proceed with cache and really take the advantage of it. Well, one of which is don't forget to invalidate cache. This is especially true when we are thinking about long cache scenarios where we forgot to invalidate cache and we see the wrong value there. So not working, clear your cache. That's the best advice I can give you. Another one is watch out for multilingual static entities when caching. This is really one of those things that when somebody does not notice, it really can take a while to debugging and understanding it. So what I'm saying here is that if you ever have had to translate the labels of a static entity, you know that you do it by using the translation mechanism of the Service Studio IDE. And when caching a query that, for instance, you pass an ID and it returns a label, or you say, hey, get me all those cached values, that value will be cached regardless on the language locale. So, for example, if I have a typical multilingual e-commerce website, I will probably have a sorting drop-down with options like ordering by price or by popularity. So it would make sense to cache a query to get those labels of that static that will never change. But if I go there with English, the values are cached English. Then I go with Portuguese, the values were cached and will be returned in English. So here, the workaround is to isolate the query in Surveyor action and add the locale as an input. This way it will save one reserved for the Portuguese and one reserved for the English. Another advice is to involve the business to align what the correct cache refresh rate is for your use case. So for instance, on that COVID situation, for me as a developer, I don't see any problem if those values are outdated for 5 minutes. But whoever knows the business upside down knows that perhaps it's critical for it to be at least 2 minutes up to date. It cannot be more than 2 minutes updated. So involve the business to understand what is the maximum of duration that the value is considerably acceptably outdated. Another advice is to make clear on caching action names that they are cached. This is especially relevant when you have your team divided in backend and frontend. The backend caches, the frontend uses it, and suddenly they don't understand why the value did not change because somebody forgot to cache, but they don't know that. So they go to the debug of Service Studio, they open the query, hey, they get the real value, they open the screen, they get the wrong value, and they don't understand why. So using a name like, hey, underscore, a suffix like underscore cache in the end, it would make this more visible. Last but not least, use cache wisely. We already saw that the drawback can be that you blew up your server resources, but we also saw that caching is really an important tool for your performance, and therefore with great power comes great responsibility. To conclude, well, obviously caching may provide incredible gains in performance and scalability, as we were able to see by the demo. And in my opinion, it should be part of the mindset of the architects, or the tech leads, and for developers to challenge the business for these kind of things. So if OutSystems really automates a lot of stuff for us, and we have more time than we would have coding high code languages, now we should use our ability to challenge the business. Hey, for this situation, would it make sense? Because I'm seeing that this will really cause a lot of trouble in the database. This is a heavy query. So I think it's part of our development mindset to think about this and to try to identify the situations where caching would make a difference. Last but not least, take into account how you use it. For instance, in my example of the Excel, I wouldn't gain a lot by putting those things saved there cached for a year. So I know more or less the process would take 5 minutes, so that's the duration of the cache I put. For more information, you can also refer to the article Caching with Caching. I will share the link here on the conversation. And that was all. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you, João. Thank you for your very amazing session. All right, at this juncture, I'll open the floor for any questions, guys. Any questions about caching? Thank you for your demo as well. I wrote on the chat just to tell everybody what was going on. We have about 5 minutes for questions and then conclusion, guys. At least we've gotten our schooling in. Therefore, how about a quick round fun session and then we conclude this, right? Thank you, João. I'll start you off with a question here. So the data that you should be looking at should be near static, often used by heavy to load. There's an example I remember from a friend of mine's company where all these factors are there, but once a year. This only happens once a year. So I guess that's not I guess my question is that a problem for cash to help? And you talked about the long cache and short cache. Right.
Yeah, for given your example, if you're talking about 1 year, it's definitely a long cache scenario. So you're saving it for too long. So short cache scenarios is more when the traffic is so long that you want to block your database and protect it. You want to protect your backend to take on these things. So you say to yourself, I'm okay if you see this 1 minute delayed, the information correct, but I need to protect it, and I know that 1 minute does not really matters for the business. For your situation where you're taking about 1 year, definitely you should cache it like for 1 year in that case, or for something like that. And when the data changes, then on that moment you evaluate cache. So once a year, your server would get the data for the first time, and then it could cache it. So the following times throughout the whole year, you would be enjoying a performance boost.
Interesting. Okay. Perfect. Relevant answer to a very relevant question. My friend will be very happy with this, actually. Thank you for that. Okay. See if there's any other questions from the Dallas user group. Are there? Let's see. So, João, I'm curious. At the end there, you said with great power comes great responsibility. It's our chance to challenge the business with the advancements that are there and the code that has been done for us. So why not? But here's my challenge back to you. So are you saying that after this session today, we go back to whatever project we're working on? Would you say write a list of everything that you know that could use a cache? Would that be a good next step to apply?
As I was mentioning in the end, I think we should take this into account whenever we are seeing stuff, especially because there's a lot of amazing stuff being coded up there, and suddenly coding with OutSystems, you find yourself with a huge project, and suddenly you don't have the time to go back and review the years of coding that have been put by an entire team. So my advice is to always have this in mind. In these situations, you can easily spot them. You can easily see that, hey, this information, it will be seen a lot. So I better protect it. Or, this information only changes like once a year. That's actually more or less the criteria we use for site properties. So this almost never changes, like the configurations. Yes, it's a site property. It's more or less the same principle.
Perfect. And before we jump to the next session to conclude this, I will read a question from João Sousa. I hope I'm saying this name right. João, can you elaborate a bit more on the issue about translated static entities and the pitfalls around it?
Yes. The situation about static entities is many times people do a query which is, hey, give me all the values of the static entities. So if we focus on the example that I have an e-commerce website, you want to have a drop down that you will use to order things like by popularity or by price, low to high. So imagine you will have these 4 values there. You will see these 4 values all the time there. So this is an example that will never change. Okay, so you have these 4 values there. So you might think, hey, I have my static entity. I put those 4 values there and I translate it. So I, of course, code in English because it's universal language, but my site will also serve in Portuguese, and I translate. Okay. And I will cache this, which says, hey, give me the values, and I will bind the output of this section, those list of 4 values, to the dropdown. But suddenly, this is very common. When you do this, you do a query with no parameters, right? You say, hey, give me the 4 values ordered, and they come. When you do the cache when you do the query for the first time, it will say, hey, your locale is English, then I cache the value in English. When you go there with the Portuguese version, with the Portuguese locale, when you go there, the cache will be a hit, not a miss. And the value returned that is going to be the one you saved, which is in English. And suddenly you have your app in Portuguese, but suddenly your dropdown is in English. So for those scenarios, if you're caching it that way, you want to have a parameter, for instance, a locale. So going back to my example, first goes the English guy with the English locale. He gets the 4 values in English. So I would say on the cache, the value for this section with the parameter English or ENUS of the locale is these 4 values in English. When you go there with Portuguese now, you will see by the parameter value, hey, I don't have this value. I need to go to the database. I will get it in Portuguese, and then I will have the 2 values saved. So next time when it comes to the Portuguese one, you will get the Portuguese version and the English version. Please let me know if it answers your question.
Wow. Wonderful answer to a wonderful question. Add a locale type to the input parameter, so that if your application, I'll use an example of my own company. We have an English flow and a Spanish flow, and the Spanish flow is used maybe 3% of the time. And your solution is when you get to the cache, if you don't have a Spanish value, then get that from the DB, but English does not get invalidated, right? Amazing.
Yeah. So you want to get different results, therefore you need to get to the data. You need to save also to different places in your cache. And to do that, one way is to have different input parameters.
Nice. I hope that question was answered. Okay, João. Bye, João. Thank you for that. All right, guys, we have 6 minutes here that we've stolen from the other session, but I promise we will end this on time. Therefore, without further ado, actually we're right on time, but let's continue. This is the fun Q&A round. All right, I'm gonna share my screen, João. I'm gonna request you to kindly stop sharing your screen.
I already did.
All right.
You can share your own.
All right, share screen. Let me know on chat if you can see my screen. Can everybody see my screen? Yes? Perfect. All right. Okay, here we go. Let's start here. I'm going to save that. Then we're going to start it. Maybe we even just host challenge. Let me host it. Okay, this is the Dallas Kahoot. We're going to do a classic. Classic. Okay, guys, open your browser, go to kahoot.com and enter that code, please. Fun QA round, swags on the table. Please join on your browsers, kahoot.com. It's KAHOOT.com. Waiting for players to start. Please go ahead and join. Awesome. Daring Rhino. All right, let's wait for let's give it 2 minutes since we're right on time. Thank you for joining, guys. If you did notice there, I had the screen open, so I did send out some of the answers. So if you looked at the answers, if you don't cache them, please invalidate that cache. All right, 4 people. That's pretty healthy. One more. Thank you, Sam, for your thanks on the chat. Perfect. This is amazing information. Today we've learned about PWA, We've learned about cache. I mean, guys, if you combine these two knowledge buckets, I feel like this is an amazing arsenal to put in your developer stash. So thank you, João, and we look forward to hearing more MVP stuff. And Antonio as well, if he's still here. Thank you, thank you. Okay, we'll start here in just 1 minute. We are right on time. This is amazing. Okay. Perfect, perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and start. Let's just see how the questions are like. OSUG Dallas, Texas, Kahoot. 3, 2, 1, drum rolls. Okay. Which one of these guys is a browser database mentioned in today's sessions? 17 seconds on the clock. Guys, which one? If you are listening to this, we have. All right, perfect. Next, we have some swags on the table. All right. Which one is not a suitable situation to apply caching? Dun, 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 dun. If the clock counts down, or if everybody answers it, we go to the next question. Perfect. Amazing. Next question. Can local storage be used in reactive web applications? What do you think? Tricky questions, right? With 4 trick answers. Just like middle school, right? And some college courses. Yes, we had to make it just a little bit confusion, but it's to make you understand it. And also we added a picture of Dallas there, Dallas skyline. Awesome. That was a thoughtful one. Perfect. Love it when people contemplate. All right, next question. 3 more. The duration of a cache is defined in design time in what's the units, guys? Oh my goodness. We have some pretty MVP laden people. You guys are gonna be MVPs. I kid you not. Question number 5. Which one of these guys is a browser database mentioned in today's session, which is a duplicate of a question? Okay, perfect. Thanks for the answers still. All right, so if you get the same question twice, there's a lesson there. All right, more questions? 2 more, I hope. Cache invalidation of a module occurs when a value of one of its site properties is updated. Is this statement true, false, none of the above, or all of it? We have the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders there to distract you, and you were definitely not distracted. Amazing. Well done. Final question. Which elements can be cached in reactive mobile applications? Queries, server actions, blocks and screens, REST services and service actions, or SOAP services and server actions? Amazing. Well done. I got rid of the other 10 questions, but amazing. Classy Bison. I'll take a screenshot of you guys. If you can send bold seal, you guys get you're getting goodies. Please go ahead and DM me your real names on chat. Please go ahead and DM me your real names on chat, please. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing here. DM me for me to send you swags and to reach out to you. Please DM me your contacts. It's 12:43. We are right on time, guys. I hope you awesome. Helena, need to go, guys. You are perfect, guys. Feel free to stop dropping off. Thank you for joining the Dallas OutSystems user group. Thank you so much, João. Thank you, Antonio. Thank you to the Dallas OutSystems user group organizers for doing this. We learned something today and we had so much fun. Next time I'm having more questions actually because the lessons, even though the sessions, they can get technical, we can actually have fun and learn some super technical things to take back to our projects, guys. So thank you all. See you again. This is not the last time we're seeing each other. We look forward to the next OutSystems user group session. We hope you join us again. 1 minute to go. Thank you. I posted my LinkedIn on there, guys. Just follow me. I like to connect with people from everywhere. Please. Thank you very much for this session, man. It feels great to learn something and to go out there, to go to lunch with new knowledge installed. Therefore, amazing. Thank you, Peter. Okay, it's 12:45, guys. I'm gonna end the meeting. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your week. Thank you and goodbye. Bye-bye.